Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am on my third attempt of recording this episode. I have two fully recorded episodes on this topic that are just sitting in limbo right now. Because my platform has changed. I was using the Spotify for Podcasters app, which I think I've mentioned on a previous episode, and they have ended their feature that allows you to record within the app. And they suggested using the Riverside app, and I kind of ignored all of that because my husband got me this fancy new setup from Scarlett Studio with a microphone and headset and everything, and it could work through GarageBand. And for some reason, I've recorded with it before. I wasn't able to get it formatted correctly, but I was able to record with it, and now I cannot use my microphone and headset with my iPad. For some reason, my iPad has decided it takes up too much power. It won't connect with it anymore. So I had to go back to the drawing board. I was able to record in GarageBand using the native microphone, and the file would not transfer. It wouldn't upload. I couldn't get it to do anything. So I downloaded Riverside and recorded an episode, and I thought it would probably work similarly to Spotify for Podcasters. It doesn't. You have to record in one take. You can't pause it. You can't upload multiple episodes. You just gotta do it in one whole recording. So my recording was in two pieces and I couldn't upload it. So here we are again, third attempt. I wanted to say I'm bad at audio editing, but I'm going to be nicer to myself and just admit I don't have any experience with audio editing or any of this, and I'm learning all of it. So I had no intention of there being this much of a gap between episodes. But it happened, partially due to technical difficulties and partially due to the fact that I have a new job. I think I had a new job when I uploaded my last episode. I think I had a very new job at that point. But I'm working 5 days a week now instead of the 4 that I was before. And it has completely thrown off all of my creative endeavors. I haven't had time for any of them. And this job, quite frankly, is probably the best job that I've had in my entire career. As far as being treated like a human, as far as the pay, as far as being able to have access to resources that I need to do my job. And yet still, it sucks. And it sucks because of the systemic problems within nursing. For the last few episodes, we've talked about politics, and I've talked a lot about my background in politics. And I left politics intentionally for a reason. I wanted nothing to do with it. I got into politics because I thought I could change the world. And I realized that if you want to change the world, you can't do it through politics. You have to do it with personal interactions. And so I became a nurse. And we're not going to get into today the fact that I went into nursing because I was extremely pro-life and I had dreams of being a labor and delivery nurse. We'll get into that in another episode, I'm sure. But it was because I realized you don't affect change by making laws and sitting on a court or anything else that is involved in politics. You affect change within the world by your everyday interactions with people. And the more people you can interact with, the more you can affect change. And so I decided to become a nurse. And I'm going to apologize because since I'm having to do this without pausing, you're probably going to hear me pause for a moment, catch my breath, take a drink, whatever. Normally, I hit pause when I need to do that and save the recording and then start up another one, but I can't do that with this app. So, apologies if it is off-putting. So, what systemic problems am I talking about? So, I'm going to start with the first one that entered my awareness in this job, and that is pregnancy leave. And I know you're thinking pregnancy leave is shit in this country no matter where you work, and you would be right. We have the worst pregnancy leave system, whatever, however you want to put it, in the developed world. Like, we're like, hey mama, I know you just like popped a kid out of your body, but like, can you like get back to work? Because like, we need you. Part of the reason that we do that is because we don't make plans for when women go on pregnancy leave. And this is the first job that it has ever occurred to me how stupid it is how we operate, not just in the field of healthcare and nursing, but everywhere does this. I've never known of anywhere that doesn't do this. Pregnancy is a predictable event for the most part. I'm not talking about the outliers, the people who have complications, go into labor early, anything like that. A woman finds out she's pregnant, even if it was an unplanned pregnancy, you know, in a few months, she's going to need to leave for a few months. Or 6 weeks, you know, if you're a shitty company. And rather than hiring a temp and having the pregnant woman train the temp to do her job while she's gone, and maybe offering the temp, you know, the possibility of a part-time or full-time job if there's an opening after she comes back, or just giving them premium pay, we just go, hey, you know, Sally Sue, she got knocked up again. Everybody's going to have to pull their weight whenever she's gone. And pull your weight doesn't mean do the job that you were hired to do the job that you have been expected to do. It means you're going to have to work more. There's going to be overtime, there's going to be extra work, and you're just expected to pick up her slack. This is why so many people in the workforce hate pregnancy, children, and pregnant women. Because we have made them the enemies, rather than anyone recognizing that the enemy is the greedy corporation or whoever it happens to be, even if it's not a corporation, the employer who refuses to hire extra help to fill in for when Sally Sue is gone on pregnancy leave. And so we burn out our employees and we blame women having babies because they're an easy scapegoat and people are gullible enough to believe it, rather than admitting that we're just too fucking cheap to hire extra help. That was the first one. And I want to clarify, because as I've said, I'm better paid, I have more resources, I am more supported, more accepted, more respected than I've ever been in any other position in my career. My managers are awesome. My managers have zero power over the things that I'm discussing. These are systemic problems that they are also subject to, that they are also victims of. No one who is my direct supervisor has any power over any of these things. The second thing is unpaid labor. Unpaid labor is a huge problem in nursing, mostly from being forced to work through lunch breaks. And even in this job, I work home health now. This is supposed to be a cushy job. Anyone who works in a hospital or most areas of healthcare will think of home health and be like, wow, that's an easy job. That's an easy job. And it is one of the easier jobs that I've worked. But you know what? The expectations of productivity, the amount of patients that I'm supposed to see in a day and the time frame that I'm supposed to see them in, I don't have time for a lunch break most days. I do not have time for a lunch break if I am meeting productivity. The only times that I have time for a lunch break is when I am not meeting my expectations of seeing patients, when somebody couldn't be seen that day or they just didn't have enough patients for me to see. Those are the only times that I actually get a lunch break. And don't even get me started on hospitals and lunch breaks. I worked exactly one job where I consistently got a lunch break every day, and that was when I worked in the OR. Everywhere else, I worked through my lunch break. I'd go grab something and scarf it down in 5-10 minutes. And that was normal. That was expected. That's the standard. And most of the places that I worked, they automatically deducted your lunch break. Automatically deducted 30 minutes from your day for your lunch pay, or rather, unpaid lunch. And you would have to get special approval from the charge nurse if you didn't get lunch. And that was very dependent on whether your charge nurse was a realistic nurse or one who towed the line. And it is so normal to not get a lunch when you're a nurse and just not get paid for that. Just do free labor during your lunch break and be penalized if you clock out no lunch or write down in the book that you didn't get lunch. Well, you were supposed to take your lunch. That's your responsibility. Some hospitals make you sign something that says it's your responsibility to take your lunch. And if you don't, that's on you. Never mind that they don't provide the staffing to allow you the break to take a lunch. Never mind that they push you to productivity to where there is no time for you to take a lunch. You signed a contract that said it was on you, so they get out of it. It's your fault. And then there's the expectation of utilizing personal resources. The worst one to me, and it's something that no one really thinks or talks about, is mandatory uniform colors. So many nurses go from one hospital to another, one agency to another, whatever. They've already got scrubs. And agency B said, or hospital B says, no, you can't wear that color, you have to wear this color. They don't give you a uniform allowance. They don't provide you any stipend to cover that buying new uniforms in that color. They just expect you out of your own pocket to buy scrubs in the color that they dictate. Because they've decided all the nurses have to be this color. Which, number one, if you're demanding that nurses wear a certain color of uniform, you should pay for it. I will die on this hill. You should pay for it if you're dictating a uniform color. There should be a stipend annually for nurses to buy the color of uniform that you dictate to them. But you're expected to just pay for it out of pocket. Even if you've got tons of scrubs in another color, those aren't acceptable. Sorry, we wear a different color here. The second thing is that multiple studies have been done that show that a variety of colors is better for patient outcomes. It helps their emotional well-being, and their emotional well-being being better helps their physical well-being. A variety of uniform colors is better for patient outcomes, and the uniformity that is practiced in so many hospitals and in so many agencies is at odds with research that is in support of better patient outcomes. but they absolutely won't change it because they'd rather have everyone looking the same. And this is part of taking away your autonomy and your personality, and I'm going to get into that later. It's the control of appearance. And that goes into so many things more than just scrub colors. That goes into your hair color, it goes into tattoos, piercings, all these things. And they're like, oh, we want you to be professional. We don't want patients to. It has nothing to do with my ability to do my job. If it is not interfering with my work, you shouldn't care. If I am hygienic, if I don't have hair or jewelry hanging down into my field of whatever work I'm doing, you shouldn't care what I look like. As far as hair and body alterations go, I can still do my job looking the way I do. And it's funny, I am a way better nurse now with all of my tattoos and piercings than I ever was as a fucking blank slate. But as long as you control someone's appearance, you can control their mind because you're controlling their expression of self, which suppresses free thought. And it suppresses the idea that we can be different. One of the other systemic problems that I'm running into is the burden of nursing. I came up with that today. The burden of nursing. The burden of nursing is that everything is your fault. I have observed this and dealt with this personally in every field of nursing that I have worked in, and that is med-surg, that is telemetry, that is ER, that is OR, that is ICU, that is rapid response, that is home health, that is hospice. And the burden of nursing is that if other people don't do their job, it falls back on you because you're supposed to make sure everyone else does their job like you're a mother of toddlers, not a coworker of adults. It is immoral. If a doctor doesn't sign his orders, it's my fault. If I can't get a doctor's office to call me back, it's my fault. If the scrub tech didn't set up her table right, it's my fault. And if it's not my fault, it sure as fuck is my problem because I'm the one having to run and get all the instruments. If a doctor wrote his order wrong, it's my fault. Everything falls back on the nurse. We are the last line before anything enters the patient. And it all comes down to us. And while we are the last line, and that is a huge burden of responsibility, it always falls down to us. It's not us and them, it's just us. Well, yes, you wrote it wrong, but you should have caught it. Well, yes, she set up the table wrong, but you should have caught it. Well, yes, he didn't mark the operative site, but you should have caught it. He didn't sign it, you should have caught it. It's always the nurse's fault. And it's always the nurse's responsibility. The last place I worked was an OR. It was elective orthopedic. And every time there was an issue, something that came up was a problem, it was a safety issue, it was a whatever, the solution was always, well, the circulators can do this. It always came down to the circulators doing more work every single time. And that is not a unique situation within the field of nursing. The solution always comes down to, well, the nurses can do this. Well, the nurses can do this. Well, the nurses can do this. And it gets into this other systemic problem of unreasonable expectations of time. Because every time that something was added to, well, the nurses can do this, well, the nurses can do this, I wasn't allowed extra time. I wasn't given extra income. I was just expected to do more within the same time frame for the same amount of money. And we've dealt with it for so long that we don't question it anymore, but it's wrong. It's unfair. It's unethical. If we are expected to do more work, we should be allowed more time and we should be given more pay. Pure and simple. You add more responsibility to me, you add an extra task to my log, there should be more time for me to do it, and I should be getting more pay. I've never seen that happen. Ever. These problems are not new. They've been going on for a long time. They've been building and getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And some people might say that's just nursing. If you want to be a nurse, that's what you have to deal with. Do you know what Florence Nightingale said? Were there none who were discontented with what they have, the world would never reach anything better. I am discontented with what I have. I love being a nurse. I hate working in the field of nursing, and those two things should not be different. Last week, I made a post on my social media, and I'm going to read it to you today for those of you who are not on social media or who aren't following me. And if you're not, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's Mosaic in Progress. If you're on Instagram, it's at Mosaic in Progress. This is what I wrote. This is a message for the nurses. I feel like there is a lot of negativity in nursing. This is not a judgment of anyone. This is a fucked career field. The system is broken. But I was thinking today about how awesome my current managers, supervisors, bosses are, and about some amazing managers in past jobs, and I think it's a good lesson. Sometimes you find yourself in impossible situations, unwinnable fights, and yet still. I think about my manager in CVICU who never stopped caring about her employees and the patients they cared for in the middle of a pandemic. We held each other as we cried over an impossible situation. She will forever be to me the epitome of what a manager should be. I think about my managers at the first ER I worked at who were so grounded in reality and had not disconnected from what the job was just because they had an office now. Also, hands down the best CNO I have ever seen in my entire career. She would come in on night shift when the ER was backed up and help by transporting patients and literally working with us to help move and triage patients. I think about my direct manager at my first home health job, who was absolutely human and treated me as a human and helped me heal from a lifetime of trauma to find my feet and confidence and become the nurse I am today just by offering friendship. The field of nursing is fucked. Healthcare is fucked. But I don't think it's doomed. I think if we remember our humanity as nurses and help our coworkers or employees to also remember their humanity and their patients' humanity, one by one we can fix this thing. We have to get back to humanity. We have to get back to being human. We have to push back against the force that wants us to be cogs in a machine. Nurses are the backbone of healthcare. Let's make it human again. Start with yourself and then help the person next to you. Since about late 2020 to 2021, I have considered leaving the field of nursing. And every time I seriously consider it, I think about this quote from the Tank Girl comic. She said, I can't let things be this way. We can be wonderful. We can be magnificent. We can turn this shit around. And that's how I feel. Because we have been dehumanized as nurses. And it's not just limited to nurses, it is all healthcare workers. We have all been turned into cogs in a machine of profit. There is a reason that America uses a caduceus instead of the rod of Asclepius to symbolize healthcare. And if you don't know, let me enlighten you. The caduceus has always been a symbol of commerce. The rod of Asclepius is a symbol of healing. We are the only country that uses a caduceus instead of the rod of Asclepius. Let that sink in. And in the field of nursing, in healthcare in general, I've talked about this on my previous episodes when I talked about politics. We have been gaslit into an us versus them mentality. It's ER versus floor, and ER versus ICU, and floor versus ICU, and everybody versus cath lab and pharmacy. We are all there for the same reason, to help people and to make enough money to make ends meet. And we have been gaslit into believing that everyone who's not in our department is just lazy and doesn't want to do their job. When I worked on the floor as a patient care tech, I worked trauma intermediate care unit. And everyone hated the ER. They just hold patients to the right till the end of shift change and send them to us right then so they don't get another patient. That was the prevailing mentality. And then I went to work in the ER and I realized that anyone working in the ER is trying to get their patients moved out as quickly as possible. That's the whole goal. Figure out what's wrong with them, treat them as much as you can while you're there, and then get them out the door or to a bed. But you're not always assigned a bed. Sometimes you have to wait hours and hours and hours. And I don't even know what the holdup is. No one ever understands really what the holdup is, why they don't assign a bed sooner. There's beds available. They could go to that bed, but they make you wait. I worked in the ICU. Everybody hated the floor. Everybody hated the ER. They're out to get us. They're just lazy. They don't want to do their jobs. Blah, blah, blah. ICU nurses look at floor nurses as being idiots. Floor nurses look at ICU nurses as being stuck up, arrogant bitches. But you know what happens when someone comes out against the nurses? Like, think about The View a few years ago when they made fun of the Miss Universe who was a nurse. She came out in her little doctor's office with a doctor's stethoscope. I haven't forgotten about that. Nurses bonded together across the country to boycott The View, to send messages to advertisers for The View saying they would not buy their products unless they pulled their funding and their advertising. Advertisers pulled their funding. I still buy Eggland's Best Eggs because they pulled their ads from The View because of what The View said about nurses. Think about the congressman, I think it might have been a senator, who said that nurses were just playing cards on their shifts. They weren't doing anything. And how we all banded together then. We hate each other in our day-to-day. We don't have to. And we can have a sibling rivalry, as it were, and know that we love each other underneath it. But this is time to put the sibling rivalry aside. Because this is bigger than a fucking talk show that doesn't make any difference, or some congresswoman, senator running her mouth about things she doesn't know about. This is our livelihood. This is our career. This is our patience. And we need to view it as serious. We need to view it as an attack, just as we did those other situations. I think about during COVID, and I haven't talked about my experience with COVID a lot. I was working in the ER when the lockdown started. And a few months later, I transferred to the ICU and was immediately asked to interview for the rapid response team. And for most of COVID, I worked rapid response or floated to the ICUs that had COVID patients. I didn't work a whole lot of the ICU that I transferred to, which was CVICU. But I had learned to do ECMO and I had learned to do CRRT. And because those are frequently used with COVID patients, I was floated to the COVID units a lot. And I did rapid response a lot. So I saw the worst of the worst through the majority of the pandemic. And not only did I see the worst of the worst with the patients, I saw the burnout and the compassion fatigue with the nurses. I saw everyone lose hope. I watched my friends and coworkers die. The ones that I knew did not die of COVID. They died of suicide. I think about the resident who I knew from his first day in residency, Walter Capote, killed himself during COVID. I think about one of the best nurses I've ever known, Christian Delgado, who killed himself. And there were countless others who completely left the field of nursing to save themselves. Or who just left and went on travel assignments, because if you're going to be treated like shit, if you're not going to be given adequate PPE and resources, you might as well make a ton of money while you're doing it. During that time, I tried to unionize my hospital. And I'm not working in that hospital now, so I can say that because they can't fire me now. And I cannot think of a single nurse that I talked to who did not think a union was a good idea. Every single nurse wanted a union, including some of the nurse managers. I got real bold. Nurse managers wanted a union. But everyone was too afraid. Everyone was afraid of repercussions. Everyone was afraid of retaliation. Everyone was afraid of their managers, which a lot of the managers wanted a union as well. They were just afraid of their managers finding out. And I found it so ironic. Everyone was so scared of letting anyone else know when the majority of the people around them wanted the same thing. And I am doing this podcast now to let you know your coworkers want the same thing. Don't be too scared to talk to them. I wrote a song. It was mid to late 2021, I think, that I wrote this. And it is 2 extra verses for a song that is very well known called Solidarity Forever. It's the Union song. And I can't believe I'm about to do this, but I'm going to sing for you. I am not a professional singer. Please don't judge me. This song is from the heart. This song is from my experience. And I hope it resonates with you. It is 2 verses for Solidarity Forever for the nurses. It is we who hold the hands of the dying and the sick. It was we who got exposed while the hospitals got rich. And it's we who'll stand together speaking up for nurses' rights. 'Cause the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. 'Cause the union makes us strong. We are stretched too thin for safety, and our cries fall on deaf ears. We have broken backs and feet from walking miles and miles for years. All we're asking for is just what we need to do our jobs, and the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. And the union makes us strong. Today is Labor Day, and every Labor Day, my husband, who is a union steward, makes me watch this video. It's like 15, 30 minutes long, I don't know, on the history of the UBC, United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America. And it is extremely inspiring and enlightening and educational. It's on YouTube. Look it up. It's just called History of the UBC, I think. But I look at it and what was sacrificed to get to where we are today. And I think about what they would do today with our situation. The National Nurses Union is great, but it's not enough. And this is absolutely no hate to the NNU. But what we need is a national healthcare union. We need to be united together, not just nurses. We need lab techs. We need pharmacy techs. We need physical and occupational therapy, speech therapy. We need a healthcare union. Because we're all working for the same goal. And nurses make up the majority of healthcare. That is absolutely true. But we're not the only ones. And we don't want those working alongside us unrepresented. One of the things that absolutely blew my mind when I first met my husband and he started telling me how a union works is that how they manage staffing. And I thought, wow, that would solve staffing issues in the US because they don't work for wherever they're working. They work for the union. And the union contracts with each job site to provide for them the number of employees that the job site says that they need. This would solve staffing issues in healthcare. You need 3,000 nurses at your hospital? Cool. Okay. Well, we can provide that amount. We've got that amount here. You're going to pay them this amount of money. They're going to get these days off, this amount of PTO, these benefits, whatever. The contract dictates everything. And beyond that, the ability to have a union steward to be like, yo, my boss is really bullying us and not providing us with the resources that we need to do our job. At my last job, went to HR and up the chain of command so many times for safety issues and legal issues and bullying issues with absolutely zero results, except that I continue to be retaliated against. If I'd had a union steward, none of that would have happened. That would have all stopped. We need union stewards in healthcare. We need union contracts in healthcare. Think about pay. When I started out as a brand new nurse in 2015, I was making 19 and some change an hour. Average hourly rate to maintain a cost of living in 2015 was $15 and something an hour. In 2023, it was $38.05 an hour. That was the average hourly rate needed to maintain a cost of living. I'm barely making that now. And that was after switching jobs. The job that I just came from, I wasn't making that. I was not even making cost of living. I went from thriving to surviving in less than a decade. It's unacceptable. It is unacceptable how we're paid. It's unacceptable how we're treated. And it's unacceptable the lack of resources that we have. We can make it better. We can absolutely make it better. But the only way that we can make it better is by looking to our left and right and taking their hands. And encouraging the people on their left and right to take the hand of the person next to them. We have been terrified of the beast that is healthcare for too long. We don't have to be scared anymore, because if we stand together, we can fix this thing. We can change this thing. We don't have to accept the excuses that this is just how it is. This is how it's always been. This is just how it is. Florence Nightingale said, I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took any excuse. So stop giving and taking excuses. It's Labor Day. Let's fuck it up. I'm ready. Are you? Will you join me? If you're a nurse or other healthcare worker, or know or love someone who is, send this to them. Send this to your friends. Let 2024 be the year that our struggling and our suffering dies, and not just our own, as mistreated nurses and healthcare workers, our patients. Because as we suffer, so do our patients. And that's why we all got in this thing, isn't it? We wanted to help our patients. The more we suffer, the more our patients suffer. If you can't manage to feel it enough for yourself, feel it for your patients. Think how much better a nurse you would be if you weren't so pushed for time. If you weren't stressed out about whether or not you could pay your bills this week. If you weren't living on crackers and peanut butter from the break room because you didn't have enough money to get good groceries this week. Let's change it. Let's change it. And as we change it, let's remember our own humanity and our own worth, and the worth of the people next to us and their humanity, and the worth of the patients in the bed that we're seeing and their humanity. Let's make that our focus. Making healthcare human again. And please join me next week on the podcast as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress.